welcome back. Today I am here with Victoria from Roots and Arrows Farm, and we are going to be chatting about homestead life and the meaning behind our homestead. So, hi Victoria, it is nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Can you tell us just a little bit about yourself and your farm?
Yeah, so I am a single mom right now. I'm going through a divorce. I have four kids. My youngest two just turned four, and they're boy-girl twins. And I have a 5-year-old daughter and a 6-year-old son. We are currently living with my parents until we kind of figure out our next step. But one thing that I've been dreaming of for, gosh, probably a decade now is starting a homestead and a farm and that whole lifestyle, really getting into that. So I started a YouTube channel 3 or 4 years ago when we were living in England that was heavily based on like gardening and gardening techniques and gardening in England and things like that. And when it came to us deciding to divorce, I put down everything for nearly a year. And so I came back here and I decided to pick it up again and start a garden, and we got chickens, and things are just starting to move forward. And again, we are on my parents' property, but pretty soon hopefully that will change to a property for me and my kids. So it's a little bit about me. Faith, food, and family.
Okay, great. And I will be sure to put the link to her channel down below so that y'all can go find her channel. And also, we are doing a video for her channel as well. So you can go watch our other question that we're going to address over there. I feel like one of the biggest things that we've learned, and we probably can talk about this in your video because that's more of what we've learned and where we've been, is that sometimes life throws you unexpected hands. And like
Very much so.
you have to deal with them and you have to like come out on the other side, and that's just part of that growth process. So it sounds like you're being dealt that hand and you're dealing with it as gracefully as possible and trying to have a positive outlook. So
Yeah,
that's
trying
always
to.
awesome. Yeah.
I had a conversation actually recently. I went to the Homesteading Festival in Tennessee at Rory Feek's house. It's always
Mhm.
hard for me to say his name. But anyway, I got to meet Jessica Sowards in person. And that, I mean, my mind just went completely blank. I I am still like not happy with how that went, but she was incredible. And one of the things that she mentioned to me as I was kind of explaining a little bit about my story is that I'm now in a place of becoming. And that really struck a chord in me. And it's kind of strange too, because at least 3 or 4 times over the last month, I've heard that in other places. Like, I'm becoming a pretty good gardener. I'm becoming a great baker. I've started a side business from the farm as a home bakery. Being in a role of both mom and dad is interesting. It's kind of I'm it, like, for my kids. So I think that is making me a little crazier, but also a little stronger.
Yeah.
Very much in a place of becoming. And so looking towards the future and seeing what else is coming, I guess, is kind of exciting and also a little scary in a way. Because like I said, it is all on me for my kids, but I'm also becoming a lot of things that I dreamed of for several years now. So yeah, it's a pretty interesting dynamic that I'm in, but
Well, and that's a great segue into the question that we are going to be discussing today. And that's the idea that what we're building is bigger than a homestead. I guess that's not really a question, it's a discussion point. But this idea that what we're building is bigger than a homestead or bigger than a farm, it's not about the chickens, it's not about the garden, it's not about all of these things, but it's about something bigger than that. Do you want to start us off and chat a little bit about that? What that means for you?
well, at the root of it for me is my faith. I am a Christian, and when I was a teenager and in my early 20s, I kind of drifted, not super far away from that, but I just didn't take it as seriously as I maybe should have. When I found out that I was going to be a mom, actually, I started really reading the Bible and like studying it daily and listening to preachers and things like that. And so I think that moving forward, a big part of what I want to teach my kids is, yes, we're growing a garden, but we're partnering with God in creation. We're looking towards homeschooling. We're not right now, but that is where I would like us to end up, because there are things like just off the top of my head, for example, when I started gardening, I felt so stupid when I realized this, but when I started gardening, I didn't know that like a flower forms and then behind that comes the fruit. And I think it was a strawberry or something. I was watching the strawberries grow and I was like, okay, there's these flowers, but like, where's the strawberry? And then it started coming like out of the middle of the flower and my mind was just blown.
Hmm.
And I was like, okay, just things like that, yeah, maybe they can learn it in school, but I would rather them learn it at home, if that makes sense. And so faith, I think, is definitely the root of faith and creation and how God is kind of at the center of everything. Things that I really want to focus on as we move forward, building a homestead, building a farm. The reason behind why we're doing that is for my kids to know God.
We homeschool as well. And that is a big why behind part of why we homeschool as well. And Homestead pairs so nicely with it because for them to get to experience those things, to get to experience the miracle of animals giving birth, to get to experience growing something with their own two hands and watching the miracle of this teeny little seed like sprout into this massive plant. Like it's incredible. And there's something about learning it in a book versus actually experiencing it and just seeing the wonder of creation and all of that. And I just think it's so super cool.
My daughter, she went out one time and she remembers like a few months ago when I was planting seeds and I was telling her like these seeds are going to grow, like this is going to be food that we're going to eat one day. And so she went out a few weeks ago and she saw, I think it was a tomato or something. And like she had seen it through the whole process, the green tomato being really tiny and then getting bigger. And I think it wasn't our first one, but it was one of our first ripe tomatoes. And she was like, it's getting red. I was like, yeah, maybe that's what's gonna happen. She's like, it's red, like the one you get at the store. I was like, well, yeah, sort of. This is gonna be better though. And she was just mesmerized that the tomato had gone from like this seed that I planted to a red tomato. And like I said, she's 5. And so I feel like, my experience of the strawberry at 34 is not going to be her experience.
Well, and I also mine are older than yours. So I have a 16-year-old that just got her driver's license. So pray for me.
Fun stuff.
And a 14-year-old. And they, well, no, a 13-year-old, which my kids are.
Oh no, it's fine. I'm like, how old are you again? Mine are so close in age. Oof. I'm gonna have 4 teenagers at one time.
And even still, like we've been doing this for a long time. We haven't had a full-fledged homestead, but they've been raising animals and they've been doing gardening and things since they were little. And even still, there's just a built-in wonder because it never gets old. I mean, it
Yeah.
never gets old to hold that fresh baby bunny or to, my older one is into milk goats recently and, she got to birth her baby goats and it's just it's magical. And yesterday, last night we spent the night all together planting their green stalk planter with all the things. And my one likes herbs and one likes flowers, and they love to, to watch the things grow and use the things. And so that's, yeah, that wonder, that sense of wonder. I think even though it will be different for your daughter when she experiences it than you did at 34, I don't know that it wears off. It's still so exciting to go out there and like stare at those plants and be like,
Oh yeah.
look, a little pepper.
I'm definitely the person who plants a seed and goes out like daily, waiting to see like, did it happen today? Like the next day, did it go that fast? I wonder. um, that's definitely very much me. If you look back, if anyone goes to my YouTube channel and looks back at like some of my first videos, I had a greenhouse, like a huge greenhouse, in our living room. And I started seeds and like green plants were growing. I had so many plants. I don't know what I was thinking. I got in way over my head, but it brought me so much joy. And I think that really is what pushed me to be like, okay, if it's today or if it's in like 5 years, like this is the direction I'm going. Um, yeah, it's incredible. It really is. And all of the things that's one of my, I want to say problems, but I'm not sure if it's really a problem. I want to do all the things. I want to do the milk goats. I love the idea of having Nubian goats, the ones with the long ears.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, I want them so bad. Nubian goats. We already have chickens, like I said, which is great. They're gonna start my chickens are supposed to start laying within the next couple of weeks, I think, because I got them as like babies. That's exciting. My son really wants a horse, so
When we're talking about our vision for homesteading being bigger than just the things we're doing, a big piece of that, at least for us, is to create daughters. We have two daughters that have super practical skills that can live life as an adult and be functional. And I don't care if my daughters ever garden again, if they don't like raising animals, whatever. But
yeah.
the skills they're learning are so important. They're learning empathy, they're learning how to care for things, they're learning how to be a good steward of what they've been given. But also, we're learning how to cook, and we're learning how to do the laundry, and we're learning how to do all those things that are going to be super necessary for them as adults, because adulting is coming fast and furiously for at least my oldest.
I hope that the things that I can instill in them will lend a hand when it comes time for them to learn those kinds of skills, like patience and perseverance and dedication and things like that,
Well, I do not envy the battles my kids are going to have to fight and their kids are going to have to fight. I mean, I felt like it was
Mm.
hard to grow up as a teenager when we grew up, but I feel like I can't even imagine right now.
Oh
And
man.
like my goal, I guess, above almost everything else, is to create this bubble of peace in our home, that it's a safe place, it's a retreat, it's a God centered place, foundational, that they can come back to, and that they feel safe in. It's not always perfectly clean, for sure. It's not always perfectly organized. Sometimes it's loud, but peace is bigger than those things, right? And so, this idea that this is a place of peace, and this is a place where, if I feel like if you consistently show them that builds trust, even when they don't trust what's outside. But it takes a long time to build that. And, we're not perfect either as moms. Like sometimes we don't cultivate peace because we're at our last frame, last end. So,
Yeah.
but another thing I feel like they benefit from, and we benefit from it immensely as well, is, homesteading naturally. It is not just, you don't just set up a homestead one day and you're like, everything is perfect. I mean, if you had $1 million, probably, and could pay for somebody to do all the things. But
Half a
then,
take half a million.
like, I don't know, but most homesteaders are doing this by their bootstraps and just
Yeah.
making things work. We're all just like, okay, I got $5 here. What can I, what can
Yeah.
I make work? And I feel like watching the struggle that causes, because it's not easy, because there are lots of failures, there are lots of things that go wrong, there are all kinds of discouragements, but them watching us do that and them actually experiencing that because they're participating in projects, I feel like that makes them more resilient, and that makes us more resilient for sure. But I love that it instills that in our kids.
Yeah. Same. It's resilient well, resilience is something that I have learned a lot about recently. I think I mentioned this earlier, but this is my first time in the garden, like actually having a garden where things are in the ground and not in grow bags, or they're not, I put up trellises for the first time this year, and I've had a lot of setbacks with either the soil not being right or the conditions not being right. And I kind of knew going into this, okay, I've never grown in this garden before, so there might be something that goes wrong. So, for example, I took cucumber plants and I put some of them along one trellis and I put some of them in a different part of the garden, completely different part. The ones that I put on the trellis, which I was hoping would be the ones that went well, didn't. They produced a few cucumbers, but then they just shriveled up and they were gone. And the other ones just continue, like they're still doing pretty good out there. So while I know that setbacks happen and that they're sad that they're happen, I'm learning very much that first of all, plants are resilient. They will try and try again before they give up. And if they die, it's usually like, okay, something is really wrong here. Because like I
There's
said,
lots of things going really wrong with mine sometimes then.
it happens. It happens. And us being stewards of that, trying to, fix the problem in a way is like we're stepping into a system that God already created to work a certain way. So if something, for example, the soil isn't right, then that's usually because, hey, a cucumber plant maybe isn't supposed to grow there.
Yeah.
Like maybe it's supposed to grow somewhere else. There's a picture that I saw on Facebook, and it was like the new farmer or the new gardener or something, and a plant dies, and like they're sprawled out on the floor and they've just like lost all hope. And then it's like on the other side is like a seasoned gardener, a plant dies. There goes, okay, and next, it happens. Like you just
Yeah.
have to learn to, as a gardener, be resilient, even if the plant isn't. I've been learning a lot about herbs and how herbs help, certain situations. And I mentioned earlier we were in Tennessee. I came down with a massive migraine when we were in Tennessee. And I messaged Jess, and I told her what was going on. I said, is there anything that you maybe know of how to get rid of this migraine without having to take Tylenol? And she asked a friend that she was staying with, Lee, and she got back to me and she told me, like, put your feet in hot water. It helps the blood rush from your head. Sometimes that helps. But she was like, sometimes I just break down and take the Tylenol. And for me, it was kind of like a moment of allowance in a way, because part of me was like, okay, if I'm going to go into this homesteading thing, if I'm going to go into this farming thing, if I'm going to start growing my own food, if I'm going to, then I just have to do all of the things. Like I have to just not take any medicine. I have to find a natural way to do this. But then when she was like, just take the Tylenol, like take the Tylenol, I thought about it and I was like, okay, so I can either lay here in bed with my head down, missing life with my kids, or I can just take the Tylenol. I took the Tylenol. And within like half an hour, I was better. And so sometimes I think that is part of balance as well. Balance and resilience and learning.
Well, and that's I mean, I feel that to the very core of my being, because when you start learning all these things and you start learning about the broken food system and you start learning about the benefits of gardening and you start learning about raising your own food and you start learning about we mill our own flour. That's our wheat back here. You start learning about milling flour. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness, we buy chickens and then one day you wake up and you're milling your own flour. If I
Oh,
would
I
have
have
told
a
myself that
Pinterest board
10
full of that
years
stuff.
ago, I would have been like, you're crazy. You start using herbal wellness and like
Yeah.
all of these things. But it also, like, you can't just flip that switch overnight.
Right.
And it is overwhelming because you feel the urgency of all these things because they all feel so like I have to change everything. And
Yeah.
it took a long time for me to take a step back and be like, okay, if I'm going to be realistic about this and I really want to change my lifestyle, I'm
Hmm.
going to have to build in some contingencies and say, you know what, sometimes though, it's okay if we have some French fries. Sometimes it's okay if we have not quite so healthy meal if the compromise is it's still at the kitchen table, like
Right.
you just make sometimes it's okay if I take the Tylenol if that means that I get to spend more time with my family
Yeah.
because whatever else is not working. Like I feel like that is a huge lesson, and for me, like I'm an all or nothing kind of person. Like if I do something, I'm like 1,000% in it, and it's taken a lot. It's taken years for me to really say, okay, like this is okay. Like for instance, so we had a massive when we first moved here. We had a massive 4,000 square foot garden, and I just dream, like to have this. Well, like Jess's garden, so beautiful, so lush, and I have some physical. I have a couple bulging discs in my back, and I actually had a recurring wrist injury. And my girls are getting older, and as teenagers, they just can't spend as much time helping in the garden, and soon they're going to be gone. And I came to this crashing realization that this is not manageable for me. Like, this is probably, probably too much. And but it hurt me to my core because I wanted it to be like I wanted to be able to do it. But the reality is my husband works full time, and not just full time one job. He is also preaches on the weekends, so
Oh
he
wow.
is busy, 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 and so he can't help me with that. So this year we really took some time and we were like, okay, we're going to go full container garden. And that's been to give myself permission to do something like that. And honestly, we can get almost as much out of the container garden as we could the full garden
Yeah.
without the extra crazy work.
Yeah.
But I feel like you said, like it's all about deciding, okay, yes, we're working towards something, and I feel like as long as we're going in the right direction,
Mhm.
that's still good.
It's progress. Yeah.
Yeah,
What is it?
progress is progress.
Progress over perfection, I think is the
Yes.
saying.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. I actually started um like I said, when we were in England, I started my very first garden, first time ever trying to really grow anything. Well, that's not entirely true. We lived in Cyprus and I tried to grow beans. And it was like a bag of organic beans, like dried beans that I got. And I was like, I don't even know if this will work. It did. The beans started to grow. And that was the first time I ever really grew anything. And I became kind of like addicted to it. And I started looking up like what can I grow from other stuff because when we were in Cyprus, you couldn't really get like Amazon wasn't a thing. You never had any overnight stuff. If you didn't buy seeds or figure out how to do it yourself, like save seeds, like you weren't growing anything. Or at least that's the way I felt. I'm pretty sure some people have figured it out, but I didn't. Anyway, so we were in Cyprus and I grew beans and I was like, "Oh my gosh, what else can I grow?" And so I learned that if you buy like a whole thing of lettuce and you cut it off and you use the leaves, you can put that in water and it'll grow more lettuce. And so I did that. I started growing lettuce like from the bottom of lettuce, so I would get two uses out of what I bought at the store. Or I can't even remember right now. I think celery is the same way. Any like leafy thing, I think is the same way. But yeah, and so then we moved to England and I started container gardening. Or grow bags. I used a bunch of grow bags. And I got more of a harvest out of that than I'm getting right now in the ground garden out here. And I put so much work into those grow bags, but we had like small pumpkins and acorn squash, I think it was, and cherry tomatoes and regular sized tomatoes and cucumbers and just all the things. Cucamelon. I planted cucamelon in England and it grew. I
We've
can't
got
get
some
it to grow
cucumber
here.
here.
I planted 4 or 5 plants, 4 or 5 seeds, and I don't think one of them has popped up.
Hey, so we have trouble sometimes getting the cucamelon to sprout.
Mm,
Azure Standard has cucamelon. I don't know if you buy from Azure Standard, but they've
not
got
yet, but I want
cucamelon
to.
plants. And
Really?
they're amazing. Yeah, that's where we got ours from. And I was like, to get them already started and not have to
That's
struggle with will
awesome.
they, won't they?
I
Yeah.
will look into that. I don't have it yet, but I want to start Azure Standard. I guess a final thought would be, part of this journey for me is also being creative. In my latest YouTube video, I talk about we were created to create. And I think that all of the avenues that we are trying to do here through YouTube or blogging or, just people we meet in person, people that I, overflow this information to, creating is part of who we are. And whether that is, creating in the kitchen or creating a garden, creating a blog post, or people who are more like on the math side of things, when you create, equations that work out, or when you invent something, or like whatever, like part of who we are and what we're supposed to do is create. And so community, creativity, things like that, I think that feeds our soul. And that when we have what is it when we have our cup filled up, we can overflow and fill up others.
Yeah.
And so I think that is a big part of what I'm trying to do and what I hope to do as we move forward. So yeah.
Well, Victoria, it has been so fun to get to chat with you and find a kindred spirit across the country.
Yes, for real. Thank you so much for having me. It's been great.
Yeah. Y'all, if y'all are watching, be sure to check out her channel, Roots and Arrows Farm. And like I said, I will link that down below in the description. Um, y'all have a wonderful day.